Jerusalem is the focal point for three major religions. Behind us is the major symbol of the Muslim faith, the Dome of the Rock.
To the east of the old city, across the Kidron Brook, is the Garden of Gethsemane. In the shadows of this olive grove, 2,000 years ago, began the most significant events in history.
Matthew 26:36 tells us that Jesus came to the Garden of Gethsemane after he had the Last Supper with his disciples. We're in the Garden of Gethsemane area, and you can see these old olive trees here. These date back hundreds of years, if not thousands. And this is the area just beneath Jerusalem where Jesus came on that fateful night.
It was here, in the Garden of Gethsemane, on that fateful night, that Jesus was betrayed by one of his disciples.
It was in the Garden of Gethsemane that Jesus made the decision to go all the way and save the race of man. He prayed, "If it be possible, take this cup from me." But then he said, "Nevertheless, not my will be done, but thine."
To the north of the old city is another garden connected with the last days of Jesus' ministry on earth. In the bustling Arab quarter of Jerusalem, there is an oasis of peace, the Garden Tomb. Discovered in 1867 by a British general, an association was formed in Britain to purchase and maintain the property. On the property is an ancient Jewish tomb, dated by archaeologists to be from the time of Christ. It is hewn out of solid rock, and the tool marks of the workers are still visible.
Go in your heart and mind to the New Testament.
Now we do read in the New Testament that as the women were approaching the tomb, the first resurrection morning, the one question they had in their minds, above all, was an obvious one, but nonetheless they were asking themselves, who will roll away the stone? We're told Joseph's tomb was sealed with a great stone. Now,
this here is that tomb, a first century Jewish tomb hewn into rock.
It once had a large rolling stone to cover the doorway, as the Bible describes. In all points, it precisely fits the tomb described in the New Testament that Jesus was placed in. Down to the smallest details, like the low doorway and the interior layout, it matches the Bible perfectly.
there's some wonderful evidence that this is the actual tomb of Christ. Of course, the crowning evidence is that it matches what the Bible says. This is the weeping chamber beside where the body would have lain. As you can see, this is large enough for a small group of people to come in, and that again fits the Bible clues. It would have had a door that would have gone from where the stone stopped here right across to this point here. That we know from some wonderful evidence which we're going to talk about shortly right here. John chapter 20, verses 11 and 12. But Mary stood without at the sepulchre weeping, and as she wept, she stooped down and looked into the sepulchre, and seeth two angels in white sitting, one at the head and one at the feet, where the body of Jesus had lain. We can see here a place where an angel could sit, and on the opposite side, likewise, a place where an angel could sit. The doorway is just here. Someone could look right on the door and see, just here, where the body would have lain. This is the spot where Jesus' body was, and where Mary saw the angel sitting here and over there, two angels. Two other significant discoveries on the property help confirm that this was a garden in the time of Jesus. One of the evidences that this was indeed a garden 2,000 years ago is this wine press, one of the largest in Israel. In the garden is an extremely large water cistern. We can see it down here. It's actually the third largest in Jerusalem. And here we have a picture taken from inside the cistern. You can see the size of it. This cistern dates back to Roman times. This cistern is at least 2,000 years old. That's another strong clue that this was a garden during the time of Christ.
The tomb itself is located very close to Skull Hill, which was known in biblical times as Calvary or Golgotha.
We're on the walls of Old Jerusalem, and over here there's a lookout point where we can see the eye sockets of Golgotha. Come on, we'll show you that. Behind us we can see the eye sockets that General Charles Gordon saw back in the 1800s. It was this that made him realise this is the real Golgotha right here.
Even after centuries of weathering, the skull face is still easily discernible. It was a very appropriate landmark for the crucifixion site that was here in Roman times.
Matthew 27:33 tells us, when they would come unto a place called Golgotha, that is to say, a place of a skull. Where Jesus was crucified was near a place of a skull. In the cliff behind us we see what General Gordon saw back in the 1880s, where the cliff had been cut through to make the quarry between here and Jerusalem. It exposed a skull face.
still visible beside the tomb, is an amazing piece of evidence. When the angel rolled the stone away from the door, the iron rod hammered in by the Roman soldiers was sheared off, and the remaining portion of it is still there today.
My name is Brian Gary. It's my pleasure to show you around this garden tomb on this day. Last year, they made a very interesting discovery. Just here where my finger is, there is the remains of some iron, which has been hammered into the rock face. And last year, there was a visitor here who turned out to be a metal engineer, and he asked permission to take away a sample, which he did, and he's dated that as 2,000 years old. Now, when we read about the death of Jesus, we read that he was placed in a tomb which had not been used, that the stone was rolled across the entrance, and it was sealed. The question is, how do you seal a stone? What better way than to take a great iron bar and to hammer it into the rock to prevent the stone being rolled back? Can't prove that, but it's a possible theory to think about.
They just found that exactly what you said.
Yes.
There are two metals in there, and it's a familiar amalgam that was used in the time of the Romans. So it could well be. It is at least consistent with the tomb having been sealed and a guard set with some sort of pin or something there to stop the stone rolling away.
In Roman times.
Yes.
Okay.
The first and the last, and it is possible that Christians had come to use this, perhaps for the purpose of burial, but others suggest perhaps for adoration or for the purpose of worship, in which case there may even have been a church built over this area at some point in time. We can see that it's very possible there was a covering or a rooftop over this area, so that again is a possibility. If it was used for worship, perhaps we would even have a foot washing station here.
The section on the left is what is called the weeping chamber, where people would gather to mourn and to prepare the bodies for burial on the right-hand side. The graves are on the right. Yeah. During the Byzantine period, which is about it's actually 324 to 640.
Okay.
But during that period, this was an area that was used for Byzantine worship, and all the evidence is there for that. The heart-shaped baptistry, the gully taking the water away, and the foot basin here, and the place for beams and supports for arches, all indicates it was a covered area. It was a church.
Thank you. This tomb fits all the clues in the Bible. The evidence speaks volumes that this is the genuine tomb of Christ.